Welcome,
right.
everybody.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 94 of our
Live from
monthly
Cleveland
show.
and Ottawa.
Yes, live.
Simulcast.
Live. Yeah, Scott is in a school in Ottawa today. No, it's just a very nice blue brick wall.
Yes. You can't tell it, but I'm accelerating.
Yes, he's in a startup accelerator. Tell us a little bit about your accelerator experience. How is it?
So it's actually a lot of fun, a lot of stress, though. So we're ClickArmor's now in what's called the L-Spark Accelerator here in Ottawa. We were one of 6 companies out of 300, actually, that got chosen to join this program this year. And it's a 6 to 9 month program where we basically get coached, we get connections, and work to get investment. So we're looking to grow pretty.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
exciting stuff.
Fun. That's why I haven't been too active on trying to get new topics for us to talk about, or basically I'm the guy that responds to Tom's great observations. Good observation, Tom.
But you do respond. That's what's important.
Yes, I'll always respond.
So before we get started, I just want to, of course, thank our sponsors, Silent Pocket and Edgewise Networks, for sponsoring the show. And if you're looking for a privacy or security related tool that will help protect your privacy, check out Silent Pocket. We've touted their products. I actually use their products with my cell phone, my laptop, when I travel. They're Faraday bags. They block all wireless signal. Highly recommend them. They make great high quality products. And because you listen to this podcast, you can receive 15% off with discount code Shared Security.
There you go.
That's it.
Excellent.
Yes. So welcome. And so we have a couple topics today. We're going to keep this episode, I think, a little bit shorter on the shorter side of things. We have definitely had some podcasts that have gone way past what was the 10-year anniversary show, right, Scott? That
that was fun. If you haven't seen that one or heard it,
yes.
There
won't be any arguments on this show.
No swearing, no arguments.
No one will get hurt. It's good. So, but we do have some interesting topics. And our first topic we're going to talk about is the top 25 most dangerous software errors. So we'll talk about how that list has been updated. It's been 8 years since that list has been updated, and there have been some changes. So it's good to educate everybody about what the most critical software eras or software. Wow. Edit that out. I can't talk today. Software errors are.
Yes.
Even if you're not techie.
And we'll give an example of where each one has occurred in everyday products, right?
Yes. Or a few. Yes.
I was joking, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our other two topics, and then we'll come back. So I had a very Canadian topic to bring up because, Scott is from Ottawa. So we wanted to talk about smart cities in Toronto, a Google project. And what does that mean? What are smart cities, and what does that mean for your privacy?
Yeah. It means different things in Canada and the States.
Oh, totally does. Totally does. And then last, we'll talk about DuckDuckGo, which is a increasingly popular search engine. And we'll give our opinions of why you should use a search engine like DuckDuckGo over Google.
Yes, we will.
Because, we're not like hating on Google, but there are some big differences between Google search engine and something like DuckDuckGo from a privacy perspective that we all need to be aware of.
Yep, for sure. Good topics.
Yeah. So let's talk about software errors, the top 25. So this was something that was recently released by the organization. So CWEs are created by an organization called MITRE, which gets their data from NIST, which in the US, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which create a lot of the standards around technology, at least in the US. But I know that those types of standards also apply to other businesses and organizations outside of the US as well, because it's just kind of a known standard.
Yeah, everybody in Canada freely talks about NIST 800-53.
Yeah, they do. Exactly.
around the
So,
dinner table.
yeah. And it's been a while since they've updated this list. In fact, it's been 8 years since they've updated the top 25 list of vulnerabilities. And what's interesting is that, well, think about it. Things have really changed in the last 8 years with technology, and the way that we assess and test applications has also changed. And what I find interesting is the data, when they came up with this list 8 years ago, they really didn't have data to support why was a particular vulnerability higher than, say, another one. What they were doing was getting in a room with a bunch of really smart people that knew a lot about vulnerabilities, and then they just, I would assume, argued over which one is more important, right, from a risk perspective, which is totally fine. But we like having data, right, to prove why one thing is, weighs more than another. So this time they actually did real data they got from NIST, and used information from the CVSS, which is called the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. That is kind of the standard for risk rating vulnerabilities in the industry. So many people in InfoSec and in cybersecurity are very familiar with CVSS, but for the general public, what it means is it's given a number rating, right? Something is considered really critical or really high, and needs to be fixed right away. And then there's other things that are very low, informational only, don't really have to fix. And then there's ones that are kind of in the middle, right?
And they kind of all look pretty familiar, though, right? Most of these have been around for a long time.
Yeah, they all have. There's been some newer ones that have kind of creeped up in the list. So I think the big one that most people are familiar with is SQL injection, right? So using techniques to extract information from databases. It's a common vulnerability that hackers use to exploit websites and databases. And it's been around since 1999, I think, was the first instance of SQL injection. And it's still on the list. But what's interesting is it actually got bumped down a bit. It's actually number 6 on the list when it used to be number 1. So it goes to show you that there are, over time, just differences in technology which increase the level of certain vulnerabilities. So, for example, number 1 is it's called improper restriction of operations within the bounds of a memory buffer. And for most people, that's like, what? What is that? What does that even mean? If you've heard the term buffer overflow, that's essentially what it means, right? So there's a vulnerability that causes an application you're basically injecting code into the application, into the memory of the application, causing it to do something. And so this is where a lot of vulnerabilities stem from these days, is this type of buffer overflow vulnerability. Very common, especially in like software. Desktop applications back in the day were a big vulnerable target, right? Where someone could target an application on your desktop with a buffer overflow vulnerability, cause an exploit, and then someone could gain access to your system through like a command shell, right? Yeah. So a connection, a remote connection into your computer. These are very, very common, and I'm not surprised at all. It's number 1.
I was just going to say, I mean, this particular problem has been around for decades, right? So you sort of wonder, like, why is it still a problem?
Because they're hard problems to fix, and it's developers still write crappy code.
And if everybody was using Pascal as a programming language,
I know, or Fortran, yeah, exactly, something like that, it'd be no problem. Ironically, Scott, did you know that COBOL, COBOL, the old programming language, still used by banks today?
Oh yeah.
Yes. We still see that. I know at Veracode, we still see customers.
Did you ever learn to write in COBOL?
No, definitely not. But I did take a programming class in COBOL in college.
Okay, well, that's close.
Which at the time I thought was completely useless, except for, I remember my instructor telling me, you can actually make a lot of money as a COBOL programmer.
As
And
the
we were
last
like
COBOL
in
programmer.
disbelief. We're like, are you serious? Come on, no way. And then later in my career, I realized, and especially working at a bank that had mainframes that had COBOL, I was like, yeah, people are still updating and writing programs for these things.
Yeah.
Like,
In
and this is
fact,
in the 2000s, like
Yeah.
crazy.
I learned a language called Snowball. I didn't learn COBOL, but Snowball was like
Yeah.
COBOL
Okay.
in the mid 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. So some things just will never die. Like mainframes themselves, right? Dinosaurs in the IT world, but they are still very important to a lot of organizations. So
yeah, cool. But yeah, these buffer overflows are going to keep on happening.
yes, they will. But if you're interested, we'll have a link in the show notes to the full list, as well as there's a good article that was on the Register that kind of broke down in layman's terms what a lot of these vulnerabilities mean, because they're obviously very technical, but it's good just for people to be aware of what these terms mean. And because we're all using software every day, I mean, everything. We're on a web browser right now. I mean, there isn't anything that doesn't run software.
Yeah.
So it's just important to understand what these things are. And even though you may not be able to do much about it except for patch your systems, like we always promote. Don't fall for social engineering techniques and phishing. The same rules apply, right?
Yep. But we do kind of depend on the programmers to test properly and make sure those things generally don't appear.
We do. And it's just continuing. While technology evolves, developer education is still very, very important. That has never changed. And even though we have AI and we have more things automating the way that applications are developed, at the end of the day, there's still a need for people to write custom code. There always will be, no matter what a machine tells us. So that's where we start. And guess who programs the AI and programs the computers telling us how to write code? It's humans.
For now, until computers write the code.
Yeah, until Skynet happens.
Yeah.
Which we have always said is not that far off.
Yep.
And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved are flat networks in cloud and data centers, with unprotected attack paths that allow threats to move laterally to cause data breaches. But microsegmentation using network addresses is complicated and takes too much time. But there's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable. At the core of Edgewise Auto Segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which allows workloads to communicate only after their software identity has been verified. Malicious or unimproved software is no longer allowed to communicate. Identity-based protection provides more coverage with fewer policies to make Edgewise simple to deploy and manage. No changes to the application or network are required. One solution protects virtual machines and containers in the cloud and on-premises. To stop lateral threat movement and prevent breaches, visit edgewise.net for a demo and to see results within minutes. So what do you think of this? What do you think of smart cities, Scott?
Smart cities, well, they got to be good. They're smart. Why not?
Yeah, well, I was a little it was intrigued by this article that came up in my newsfeed about how Toronto is going to be putting their own, it's a smart city that's sponsored by Google called Sidewalk, into the Toronto waterfront. Now, I haven't been to Toronto, but I'm sure that's probably a nice area of town, isn't it?
Parts of it are, yeah.
Yeah, parts of it. Says the man from Ottawa.
There's a bit of rivalry, right? Hockey team.
I'm sure. Oh, definitely
the
hockey
team. Got a bad mouth Toronto once in a while.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I know that Toronto Raptors.
I tried to copy the link that you sent me, and I can't get to it. Are you able to? Just so in case when you post it on the show notes, I want to make sure. Sure. I can actually get there.
Yeah, I just sent you in Skype.
Maybe it's just not reachable from Canada.
Ah, that's what happened. They know it's an article about a Canadian smart city, so they're like, nope, you're not accessing that.
Let me see if I can get there. Copy link. Yeah, okay. It's doing the handshake. And doesn't
Well,
seem
anyway,
oh.
That's okay, Scott.
Okay, I will just listen.
I can't explain, but so if you're not familiar with a smart city, what it is a smart city is kind of the culmination of technology into an urban living environment, right? So picture something, everything is automated, including your garbage service. I mean, in fact, they've, for this Toronto project, they're talking about some type of pneumatic tubes in your house that send the garbage right to some automated underground waste facility, right? So it's automating a lot of the things that, we all do every day, but it's all part of the infrastructure, right? So just like that rubbish system integrated into the house, into the infrastructure, the roads are all smart roads where, some of them might have capabilities to charge electric cars, right? We've seen some of that technology being experimented with, I know, here in the US. But the other piece of it is it has a lot of privacy implications because what's interesting about this article is they were talking about how a lot of there is some parallels to how China is doing their social credit system. So the more wealth you have or the more power, the more benefits that you get in society, or in terms of a smart city, your neighborhood. So they're talking about purchasing credits to do certain things or to have certain technology in your home. You have to meet these certain requirements. So, and all of that is powered on data, and they get this data from, what they could be surveilling your internet usage, or there's surveillance cameras that see when you leave your house, when you come home. And you kind of agree to all of this to participate in a smart city.
Yeah, interesting. It's it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah. So a lot of controversy over it. Obviously, Toronto, I know the city officials are going back and forth on this, even though this has been talked about since I think 2016 in Toronto, and they're finally making some progress, through this project. And so this article kind of shines a light on it and shows some of the I'd say more of the cons around privacy and what people need to be aware of. But this is definitely something, even though maybe in the city that you live in, it might not even be on the radar. But I think in the future, 10 to 20 years, more of our cities may take concepts from these smart cities and start integrating them into our daily life. So just good to be aware of what's being talked about and what we could possibly do about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, certainly, to see how the study goes, or the project. As you said, certain, you can imagine how some of those services could have certain privacy impacts. When you're participating in it, do you really want the city to know, how much garbage you're putting out every day, or I'm
What's
sure there's
in your
probably
garbage?
more innocuous or sort of insidious types of data abuse possibility than that, but
Sure.
just lots of things that we hadn't really ever thought of before.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because we're already starting that in a lot of ways. We're making our own homes into smart cities, right? I mean, we have Nest cameras, we have Alexas, and, all these things that are automating things within our homes. I kind of see the smart cities expanding that out beyond our own homes now. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. You read the article about how Ring had a program with local police they would give the police a map of where all the Ring cameras are in the city. And they've, of course, since stopped that program because a lot of people were freaking out. I don't want the police knowing I have a Ring camera, even though you could debate that and say, Well, they could drive down the street, look at your house, and see the little Ring camera on your door, and map it themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's a debate too about this actually has a positive effect on decreasing crime. So what is the privacy ramification really when we're talking about a Ring camera?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's
because I know if a crime happens outside of my house, like I'm going to give the police the footage. Absolutely. Because I want, especially if it's something to do with my property.
Yes. Yeah. Could end up impacting your insurance at some point too.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
so
it actually provides us a little bit of a segue to the one article that we hadn't really planned to talk about, but I mentioned just before we came on air, and that is a story here in Ottawa just last week that since April, over 100 cars have been stolen using a vulnerability that we talked about here. I don't know how many years ago, 2-3 years ago. The relay vulnerability in car remote keys, the key fobs, and how if you had two different devices, relatively inexpensive, you have one that you can get somewhat near the actual keys. So maybe if they're hanging on the hook inside your front door, they put a device just outside your front door. It's probably close enough to detect the key, and then put another device near your car. And there's actually a relay communication system that makes the car think your keys are right next to it, and vice versa. The key and the car exchange information, and you touch the doorknob and it opens, right? So that's basically how they're breaking in. And one of the interesting part of the story that kind of relates to our last discussion is they have people on camera from their Ring video doorbells showing, that what they're doing, but the police haven't been able to catch them, which is doesn't say a lot for our police here. But I guess they managed to get away pretty fast and get the cars somewhere that they can be exported pretty quickly.
I had talked about the same thing that's happening with Teslas in the U.S. They're doing the relay attacks, very similar fashion. And it was actually a good segue into our sponsor, which was, Silent Pocket, because they make Faraday bags to prevent that exact same situation, that crime, because you put your key fob in a bag. So say you leave your keys by your door, like most people do, and that's where a lot of these attacks are happening. You just stick your key fob in a Faraday bag, and there's your solution, because it blocks all wireless signals. So.
Yeah, or in the freezer, apparently.
Or in the freezer, or tinfoil. I mean, you could do all kinds of things, but it is interesting, those attacks. And the other thing that was really crazy was there was an article about how thieves are going around with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi scanners in parking lots, looking for devices that are, beaconing wireless and Bluetooth. Because the old way of, we say, hey, if you have a phone or a laptop, put it in your trunk or put it in the glove box so no one can see it, and do a smash and grab robbery, right? Smash the window, grab your stuff. So this kind of is a way to get around that, right? So if somebody sees a Bluetooth signal coming out of, near your car door, they know you have a phone in there, so they smash your window, open the car door, and then they rummage through till they find your phone. Yeah. So that's a thing now too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sad, but
it is.
But it's interesting that the Silent Pocket sponsors our podcast here, and it's very relevant from the point of view of the kinds of crimes and things we're seeing right now.
Yep, it totally is. So you use DuckDuckGo. You've been using it for years.
I do. I've been using DuckDuckGo for quite a while. Ever since, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, I think I saw an article on a blog somewhere where people said, if you go to google.com/dashboard, I think it is, you can, I don't know if you can still do it, but you used to be able to see every Google property that you have an account with. And it started to scare me that, like, all this stuff is just unnecessarily closely bound, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at what every search that you do, is being captured and tracked and coordinated with everything that, everything else you do. there was a really good talk by Mikko Hyppinen, a TED Talk, probably almost 10 years ago, I think, where he said people are more honest with their search engine than they are with their family. When you think about that, how sensitive, the things that you search for are. Google and DuckDuckGo, there's a big difference. So maybe we could explain why they're different.
Well, the big reason is that Google makes money off of your searches, and they serve you ads. So, I think even more recently, if you've been on Google search, they've even, I'd say it's gotten a little bit worse in terms of how when you search for something, you'll see an ad, or like in this example, they said you search for a movie, you're bound to see an ad for a Google service like Google Play, where you can download the movie that you just searched for, with a link, a nice convenient link to open up and spend your money. This is just the Google wants to keep you in their infrastructure, and they know that they're the most popular search engine. So they have found ways to monetize that. And it's from a privacy perspective, they record everything. I mean, they come out and say that they don't,
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
So DuckDuckGo is much different. They actually do not record your IP address. They don't record any of your search history, all of that information, because they don't make money off of your search history. They just don't record it.
They make money off volume, apparently.
Yes, right. Yeah. You're going to confirm?
Where do they make their money? I don't know.
No.
They must have a premium service.
I don't think they do. I don't know.
Just fundraising?
Yeah. I think they're just, a smaller organization that has just grown over the years. And they have just a different model. And it's based on privacy. So,
yeah. But it's a good thing. I've been using it for 4 or 5 years, and most of the time I get what I want from their searches. Occasionally, you think, I know the data is there somewhere, and I'm just not seeing it. I'll go to Google and try it, and may or may not find it.
Yeah, and it has gotten better over the years. And the article will link in the show notes. Their point was, for most people that are searching for general things, it does the same thing as Google. You're really not going to see much of a difference at all. And, it's worth just trying out, see how you like it.
Yeah,
there's no harm.
I recommend it for sure. I'm just trying to think if there's any tricks or things that I like about it, especially. Actually, I do like their mobile apps. So you can get the DuckDuckGo app, which is just a special browser. So it's like in on your desktop, you have to run Firefox or Google or Chrome or something, and you set DuckDuckGo to be your default search engine. But it's nice to actually have the whole browser provided by them, and that there's not a lot of possibility of things being tracked or whatever inside.
It is. And we're probably going to do an episode on just secure web browsing, talk about the different types of browsers. Like you said, DuckDuckGo and their search and their apps that they have. Firefox has a very similar Putin on mobile. I haven't played with that one, but thanks, Bobby, for that comment. But there's a lot of different tools now and apps that people can use for more private searching, more than just your, and Brave. Can't forget about Brave.
Yeah, you've been using Brave for a while, haven't you?
I've used it, yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. And that's another browser that's gotten a lot better over the years as well. My main browser is Firefox. I've just always been a big Firefox fan, and Mozilla. I really like Mozilla products and their stance and on privacy, and their plugins too are fantastic. So especially the newer versions of Firefox that have privacy protections like tracking blockers enabled by default now, I think is really important, and light years away from Chrome.
Don't they kind of like run in a sandbox or something? Like they let sites drop cookies, but they basically clean up everything after you're done.
They analyze the cookies and anything that's any web calls that you're going to. They basically, with the plugin, it's all part of the browser now. So, and you can actually see what they're blocking they've made it very transparent as well. It's really nice. Awesome. So what are some things you got going on? Anything you want to tell our audience about?
Well, as I said at the beginning, working on ClickArmor, which is our cybersecurity awareness training that uses game-based learning. So we're teaching people about phishing and social engineering in courses that are actually gamified. So every lesson you take is a little game or a challenge, and you earn points. But at the end, you have to pass pretty challenging tests. We're getting good feedback from people that they've gone through it, and they got stuck on the final exam, lost like 3 times, 3 lives or whatever. And but I'm going, is it too frustrating? No, I just went too fast and I didn't use the stuff I learned. So that's a good sign. But we're actually going to be launching kind of a small business or low end service. So we originally had looked at it as an enterprise thing where you'd pay $5 a user per month per year, or $5 a user per month, and then we'd have a library or an ongoing inventory of courses for different security topics over the year. And we'd be doing that, but we're probably going to open it up more to one-time use, or a 1 month kind of thing for just phishing, for example, which seems to be pretty much in demand. Obviously, phishing is the #1 risk that when we talk to most businesses, that's what they're facing, and social engineering.
It is huge problem. So that's great.
Yeah. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the next episode or two. So
excellent.
Got lots of work to do before then, though.
Yes, definitely. And for me, I'm just dealing with Q4 madness. So the end of the year, everybody in the world seems to need a pen test for their company. So we are frantically working, and it's been good. That's cool. Good to have all the business, but
we should do a little bit of a shout out for our next episode. Can we talk about who we've got booked for that?
Yes. I'm very excited to announce that we will be bringing back Rebecca Harold, the privacy professor, to the show in December.
She's lots of fun. She's always got great stories and lots of energy.
She is awesome. Yeah. She's always been one of the people I've always looked up to in the privacy community my entire career. I always get a little like starstruck when she's on the show.
I bought a book that she published probably 6-7 years ago. It's like the Guide to Security Awareness Programs. It's like this thick. You can see my hand. I don't know how she got time to write it, but and all the other stuff. She does TV appearances and works on working groups.
She's all over the place.
I think there's more than one of her personally, but
I think there is. Yeah,
we'll have to ask her when she's on.
Her email newsletters are like so detailed, and like she spends so much time. Like honestly, seriously, I'll put it in the show notes. A link to her newsletter. I highly recommend reading it. It's like if anything you want to know about what's going on in the world of privacy, subscribe to that.
I used to try to compete with her at the end of the month. I'd do the streetwide security news, and we'd come out at the same time. And I'm going, oh, she got that story, and but I got this story. But like she's way ahead of me now. So
yeah. There's no way you can't compete with Rebecca, but she'll be back on the show. So we'll have that actually over Get Vocal, which will be great. So you can participate, ask questions. It'll be really cool. Because we've never done a live show with Rebecca before.
Yeah. That's great. And we want to thank the folks that joined us live, and appreciate having you on and your questions and comments. And
thanks, Bobby. Thank you for all the comments. Much appreciated. And
so Steph.
Yes, definitely. So, and the other thing just to mention too, I'll have a link in the show notes. I did a really good interview with Jason Wood on his podcast, which is the InfoSec Career Podcast, which I got to tell my story of how I got into penetration testing and got to be a manager, and my kind of journey through my career. And it was really fun. It was a good interview. And
cool.
For anyone that's looking to get into cybersecurity or privacy, hopefully, listen to the interview. There's some good tips that I've learned over the years.
You have to learn COBOL.
To get me where I'm at today. Yes, you have to learn COBOL. You have to know what buffer overflows are.
Cool. All right.
COBOL. Yes.
Good stuff. So we'll be back again before the holidays, hopefully.
Yep. And if you haven't subscribed yet, check out the Weekly Blaze, which is our weekly show, which is hosted by yours truly. And we cover the top 3 cybersecurity and privacy news from the week.
Yep. And buy a Silent Pocket.
Yes. Support our sponsors.
Yes. Good stuff. Thanks very much, folks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chatting, Bobby. Appreciate it. And everyone take care.